we who rightfully want to see results right now can feel like we're out here on this hamster wheel, doing all the things we're told that you're supposed to do to make your business work or to get the network flowing or open the door. And we can sometimes miss that every time we show up is impactful. It may not always generate a check. It may not always generate a great review or an award, but I promise you, it is doing what it's supposed to do. When you have these seasons, because I know you talk about making moves here, and I think what we don't talk about enough is in the times where we're making the moves, but nothing seems like it's moving.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing where you know you're doing everything you're supposed to do, and you just have to trust. But you better take your purpose and your impact dead seriously, because it is not just for you. It is designed to awaken something powerful in other people. And that's enough to get up every day for.
Hey, money movers. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have our next guest here today, Jade Simmons. She is incredibly talented. I mean, a classical pianist. She speaks all over the world, giving keynotes in high demand by so many different corporations. She also is one of my WPO sisters, Women Presidents Organization, and that's how we met. And I'm just so excited that you are here today. Thank you, Jade.
I'm honored, Staci, to be amongst the women that you've been featuring. It's really a privilege. So thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. You light up the stage. Your light shines through when you enter a room. But then at the end of your show, I mean, the way that you move people, I mean, you transform lives by what you do. So I'm just so excited to have you on the show and just give a little peek of that here on Her Money Moves.
Yeah, let's do it. Thank you.
So what gave you the courage to break away from your traditional classical music path?
Yeah, it's funny. I'd never heard it phrased that way. What gave me the courage to break away? I think the irony is that fear forced me to break away. And what I mean by that is in my early classical music career, which those of you don't know, it's a highly competitive industry full of a lot of either child prodigies or living legends who've been playing the music, as long as Beethoven's been, has been dead, so to speak. And so you really do feel this intense pressure to compete, literally with the living and the dead, right? And you're on this stage, and then especially as an African-American female, you don't see a lot of people who have gone before you, who are doing what it is that you say you want to do. And so there's this kind of internalized pressure to prove that you belong. And I think when you don't realize you've internalized that can really begin to eat at you. And that's what it was doing a bit. I started having these memory slips and bouts of stage fright that those weren't natural things for me. I'd always been comfortable on stage. And in order to get through the music, I tell audiences this all the time, I started talking to the audience. I started telling them stories about Mozart and Chopin and funny behind the scenes stories and scandalous stories. And the audience would fall in love with these stories. It would also sort of ease the tension in the room. And I began to develop this relationship with the audience members that put me at ease. That ease allowed me to play as good as I knew I could play. But it was sort of like the cat was out of the bag, and the stories are what really had my career take off. People started booking me. They would say, book that piano girl who talks, right? And so that changed everything. So when I say the fear, sometimes we'll be in these situations that feel awful. We wouldn't wish them on our worst enemy. And they end up forcing us to do something differently. And then that different thing becomes your differentiator. And that's what happened for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you when you first started playing piano?
Oh, I was so old, Staci. I didn't start till I was 8 years old. In classical music, it's almost over the hill. A lot of people who go on to make a career started when they were 3, 4, and 5 years old. Mozart, for instance, was already touring Europe at 5, 6, and 7 years old, playing multiple instruments, composing music for orchestra. So when you start at 8, 9 years old, it's like you're late to the party. So I had to play catch up for quite a bit. Fortunately for me, I loved it right away. I practiced all the time. I was always playing pieces that were too big for me, and probably still do to this day. But I loved the passion. I loved the drama, the most dramatic pieces. That's what I wanted to play. And I loved it as a little girl. And I used to win piano competitions when I was back in Charleston, South Carolina. I later, competed for scholarships and those sorts of things and went to Northwestern University for my undergrad. And then I came here to Houston to go to Rice University, their Shepherd School of Music, for my master's.
Yes, but you didn't just stop for your master's in Illinois. Weren't you Miss America?
Oh, my undergrad. Yeah. So you've been doing some research. So when I went to Northwestern, I was there to major in piano performance. And my junior year, I competed in the Miss Chicago pageant. And I won. And then I won Miss Illinois. And then I went to Miss America 2000. And I was first runner-up. It's like that. Oh, so close position. But I had the incredible privilege. My platform issues, we used to call it back then, was youth suicide prevention. And I had the honor of traveling this nation, speaking on behalf of mental health, mental illness research. I got to roll out part of the rollout for the nation's strategy on suicide prevention with the U.S. Surgeon General. I testified in front of Congress at 21 or 22 years old on behalf of mental health funding. So one of those detours that changed everything. That's when I actually found out I had the skill for public speaking. And I was speaking every day to anyone from kindergartners, right? And you would, as Miss Illinois, you spoke in schools every day. Because my issue was a hot button issue at the time, I was also speaking at mental health conferences and suicide prevention conferences. So I was not knowing it then, but honing the skill of being able to speak to anybody on just about anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And how do you know when it's time to reinvent yourself and to take that new leap?
Mm-hmm. Well, now it is a intentional habit. I always say if we haven't changed, if 18 months goes by and we look like the same exact company we were 18 months ago, then we are slow, because reinvention is what has made me who I am. It's what any success I've had has always come at a point of reinvention. And so I always challenge people, and I'll challenge your listeners as well. We only have so much time on this earth. And I think that most of us live and die without first uncovering what purpose really is. Secondly, when we uncover it, we rarely dare to walk in it. You're a perfect example of someone who's running into the wild where purpose is concerned, which you have to do. And then we find something that we think is it. And that's because of how we're sort of trained in society, right? We start asking our kids at 5 years old, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? Mm-hmm. And then we get these ideas locked in our head. I wanted to be a classical concert pianist. End of story. I was going to go to Juilliard, play Chopin every day, and that was it. And I got to do a good bit of that for a little while. And then there was this knock, right? And sometimes that knock comes in the form of fear or memory slips or stage bout or a bout of stage fright. Or sometimes that knock comes in this voice that says, this is good, but is this really all there is? Mm-hmm. So while one audience saw me on stage playing Beethoven and Mozart and Chopin, I was also in a drum line. I started a percussion and dance ensemble. I loved Missy Elliott. I mean, there were all these parts of me that I was keeping in different compartments. And today I'm known for concert adventures that go from classical all the way to rap. But that came each time I dared to reintroduce a part of myself to the public that I was serving. And so reinvention is best used when you ask yourself, is there another group I could be serving by allowing another part of myself to show? Mm-hmm. So it's never a gimmick. You don't say, who else do I want to be? What do I want to pretend? No, it's who else have I always been, but I haven't yet brought this part of myself to the table. And usually we have a pretty long list of those things, and they will yield that next reinvention.
Wow. Love that. And what mindset shifts have helped you transition from performer to the CEO and global speaker that you are today?
Okay, well, let's bring fear back into the equation. I actually don't experience literal fear very often. The one fear that I do, that I am most familiar with is the fear that I am not being everything I could be. And as a result, also not earning everything that I know the composite of my gifts, talents, skills, and abilities should earn. Now that's literal profit, right? Financial revenue, but am I profiting emotionally, spiritually, personally, professionally from the things that I'm doing? And so when I look at, man, just over the last few years, the things that have brought me the most joy, it's when I've, like I said earlier, take this other part of myself kind of out of the closet, so to speak, and bring it to play. And when you do that, you get this combination that yields, the biggest impact possible. Yeah.
And you blend music with motivation. How does that create a deeper impact on audiences?
Yeah, well, that little time where I started speaking to the audience really changed everything because I began to get invitations to come speak. But when I would come speak, I'd bring the piano. And so the piano for me, music in general, it's, my keynote adventures have classical music, jazz, R&B, hip hop, rap, all the things are incorporated. And it's because the music for me serves as a tool to open people's hearts and minds. So that's what sort of gives you the permission to do these different things. And when you do them, they allow you to operate on different stages. So for me, the music was always so motivational for me personally. And I was wondering, don't other people feel can't they feel what I feel? Like even as a kid, I was the one who always moved too much when I was playing the piano. I was nodding my head. I was just couldn't keep still.
That's me at the gym.
See?
I'll be over there
it's a real thing.
Stair stepper. And I'm like,
and you got a beat going. Exactly. And so my underlying belief is that people want to behave more out loud than they currently are. Can I cast an atmosphere that allows them to do that? So we boldly say, standing ovation guaranteed when you book Jade. Well, because we know there's a formula now. If you can get people to feel not just great about you, like level 1 awesome is when they go, you were great. Your outfit's awesome. Your hair is great. Your shoes. Okay, that's basic. That's 101. The next level is when the audience says, I feel great. Right? You did something and you were awesome, but that awesomeness equaled me feeling like I can do something I couldn't do before you got in the room. I think some way I didn't think before you got here. I am now going to move differently than before I met you. That is what being a powerhouse means. It means you don't hoard power, but your practice is in pouring power into the people you serve. That's the kind of leaders that we need to see in every field, not just politics, but in business, in ministry. And that's what motivation really is. You should be moving people. It's not just getting them excited. Where are you moving them from A to Z? And we as the movers need to have an idea of what Z can look like for the people that are assigned to us.
Well, that is so powerful.
Thank you.
And what's the most powerful transformation that you've seen from your work?
I think what's probably the most surprising transformation is in this journey, as I think you could probably relate to me. Type A has it all planned out, knows exactly how I want it to look, thought it would have all happened by now. I think the biggest transformation is I have become more open to allowing things to play out. So even for my audiences, I would have a way that I wanted things to happen. And I was always shocked at how they happened way better than what I'd planned. Now that helps me today when there might be an equipment failure on stage, right? Where I press the button for some really cool sound to go off and nothing happens. And suddenly I have to improvise in the moment. Or I get audience volunteers that have no rhythm. And I wasn't planning for them not to have any rhythm. And suddenly I have to start teaching the audience about how sometimes you get awesome people who are assigned to you, but who have no idea to do what you need them to do. And how do you deal in that moment? And so suddenly this person who's shaking and nervous to death, we can tell this really powerful story about how we as powerhouse leaders can help that person find their calm and be able to do more than they thought they could do. So when you can do that, and that person who got up there and couldn't play anything in the beginning and is now doing what you asked because you gave them space on your stage in real time at the risk of them screwing everything up, but you as the leader said, this stage is also for you. Like, those moments are way bigger than the original ones I planned. So now I go into the room saying, my prayer is, God, just please do whatever it is you intended in this room. Do not let me get in the way. Throw out all of my agenda and my bullet points and just help me impact the people who you have designed to be in this room today. So that, for me, as a super control freak type A personality, is probably the biggest transformation I could ever have.
Wow, that's amazing. And do you have some stories from some of your audience members of how what you said or what you did transformed their life?
Yeah, I think, people assume when they see the branding and the website and the big piano and the outfits, they'll say, oh, well, that is her calling card. The music, the glam, that's it. My actual real trademark is in customizing whatever my content is for the industry I'm in. So in 1 week, we had, about a span of 2 weeks, we did Google, Brightview Senior Living, Kaiser Medical Group, and Lakewood Church, right? All in a really short amount of time. And I refuse to tote the same exact speech to every place. So what I'm trying to do is make sure I am, like we talked about, A to Z, reaching the people in each of those rooms right where they are. And at Brightview Senior Living, I tried a new thing where I wanted to play a soundtrack to someone else's life or someone else's story. And this guy got up and shared a really powerful story of a patient who was in hospice, and he was able to provide this moment where the patient got to do a last dance with her son that they didn't get to do at his wedding. It just was one of these moments. And so he's on stage, not knowing he's going to be on stage that day, telling a very important story to a room of people who do the same thing he does. And it was important. It was impressive for them to see me do my thing on stage. It was most impactful for them to see themselves on stage, telling a story that they all could relate to. And I, at that point, was merely the accompaniment, right? Making the music up as I go to the story he was telling. And when you get done, the audience, that's actually what they remembered, was this guy. And I think when leaders can become unafraid of being forgotten, so that the most important things can be remembered, that's when your leadership's top notch. You're okay that they might not remember your name, but they got to hear Steve tell a story that meant something to them that they can take back and do something with.
Yeah. One of the first times that I spoke was at ASER, Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility's 30th anniversary or 30th annual symposium. And I was speaking to the audience, and then later on, like a year later, one of the women told me, Staci, I was so excited that you were going to be here today. And it was in a completely different city. That was in LA. This was in Boston. And she said, do you know that when you were speaking, I felt like you were talking to me and I was actually in tears. And she said, I remember that you said to take action. And I did. She said, I left that job. I'm now making 50% more at my new job. And I just bought my first home.
That's it.
And that for me was like, okay, I'm so grateful to be able to impact another person's life in that way. And I know that I'm fulfilling my purpose. And I'm still, keeping in touch with her. She just got a promotion to manager. I mean, it's amazing how transformational positivity that we can bring to other people's lives.
I think what's important for your listeners to hear out of all of that, as you said, a year later. And I think we who rightfully want to see results right now can feel like we're out here on this hamster wheel, doing all the things we're told that you're supposed to do to make your business work or to get the network flowing or open the door. And we can sometimes miss that every time we show up is impactful. It may not always generate a check. It may not always generate a great review or an award, but I promise you it is doing what it's supposed to do. There are literally, for that one lady who took the time to reach out, go ahead and multiply that. I guarantee you there were others. Some know that it's related to something you said. Some don't even realize that something shifted when they were in the room with you. And I think when you have these seasons, because I know you talk about making moves here, and I think what we don't talk about enough is in the times where we're making the moves, but nothing seems like it's moving.
Yeah.
And I know what it's like to be in that season. We're coming out of that season now. I'm prophesying that, right? It's a hard thing where you know you're doing everything you're supposed to do, and you just have to trust. And I believe those moments when people reach out, those are the reminders that, listen, I promise you, you are effective. And that is actually the change we're put here on the earth to do, which is to push other people into purpose, into the movement. I mean, if we want to get really dramatic about it, imagine if you hadn't shown up that day. That's one person that might stay 6 months more, a year longer, out of position to be the person that they are destined to be. And if you can start taking, it's a thin line where you don't take yourself that seriously so that you can deal with stuff and not be offended and keep moving, but you better take your purpose and your impact dead seriously, because it is not just for you. It is designed to awaken something powerful in other people. And that's enough to get up every day for.
Wow. Said so beautifully. How do you help people break free from limiting their beliefs and to play bigger in life?
Yeah, I am personally physically irritated when people talk about themselves in small terms. Like, I cannot stand it. Even if it's a perfect stranger, I will stop them and say, we've got to change this language. I think language is huge. How we talk to ourselves is huge. And I think also just recognizing where small thoughts are coming from. Like, where are they really coming from? Why do we use words like just in front of what we do? I'm just a mom. I'm just a teacher. I'm just in corporate. Something has taught us that, I don't know, it's good to sort of invalidate who we are before we take any credit for what we're capable of. And so I like to empower people, first of all, to uncover purpose. We were talking offline about hosting workshops and things. I do these boot camps that help people uncover their purpose in 5 days. And we now have proof that it's possible. And we see them go, like you say, and launch things or relaunch things or leave things or start things because they get it. Because purpose, to me, it's this ingredient that becomes your picker. It tells you what to say yes to, what to say no to, so that you're never just responding out of desperation or obligation, right? And so I like to push people into purpose, because then I don't have to do any more work, right? So I love coaching people, but I don't want people to be codependent on me as a coach. And so if I can get them clear on what their purpose is, purpose then begins to tell you how to move, where to go, how to position. So that's a passion for mine. I would say my purpose is to activate people into being bigger and bolder versions of themselves. And purpose is a big part of how I empower them to do that.
Yeah. And tell us the name of this workshop so they can get signed up.
Yeah. So this is the Purpose to Profit Boot Camp. We're excited because we know that you're not going to look the same way you looked at the end of that 5 days. But each day we talk about not just uncovering what your purpose is, but how to profit from it personally. We spend a day talking about how to profit from it spiritually, emotionally, professionally. We also spend a whole day talking about how to profit from it financially. Your purpose should pay you. Even if you're like, oh, I just want it to do charity work, that's fine. But if you want it to pay you, I'd like to teach you how to do that as well. So that's important to me, that people don't starve in purpose as well.
And what's your vision for the future of Jade Media Global and your personal legacy?
What's my vision for Jade Media Global? So we are building this world-class media studio in the Montrose area in Houston. And so I would love for that space to not only be a place where I produce content, but that it opens a lot of doors and possibilities for other content producers and influencers, especially women who I believe have a voice, but need a place to kind of prioritize their platform. We'd love to be a space that produces that kind of opportunity for them. I'd love to be able to create the type of content and training programs that help other people move bigger and bolder. I'd love to work with CEOs and other C-suite people and people who see themselves on stages so that they're not just impressive on stage, but that they're impactful. That's a passion of mine. So that's a large part of the future. Personally, I've got a lot of goals on the list. I think you understand what that looks like as a mover and shaker yourself. I am actually back in school. I'm getting a master's and eventually a PhD in government. And so I would like to use that to help release our nation into greater purpose. I don't think we've lived up yet to the potential of who we are. And I think the current climate proves that we still have a lot of work to do. So in that arena, I would love to unleash purpose-based, commanding leaders who are unafraid to speak their minds, to speak what is right, and to create solutions for people that are not just like them, that don't just believe like them or look like them, but for all people. So that's on the to-do list as well.
Yes, and you also ran for president.
You did your research. Yes, in 2020, I was an independent candidate for president. That was when former and now current President Trump was running against Biden at the time. And we did some incredible things. I was actually eligible to be voted on in 40 plus states. And that never made the news because of two reasons. Because of the knockdown, drag out fight that was going on because of COVID, George Floyd, all of that happened in that same era. But what was probably most disheartening was the pretty stringent counter attack against all voices that weren't Republican or Democrat. So there was an extreme media shutout. We weren't able to be covered on any of the major media, even though we were eligible to be voted on. And so that was an eye-opening experience. So when you talk about the future of Jade Media Global, I'd like to make sure that voices that have something powerful to say, their only options aren't mainstream media, that there is a place that has the same clout, right? That can still help get voices out there so that Americans know they have other options. Americans vote the way they do because they don't believe they have any other option. 60% of this country actually identifies as independent, yet there's never an independent option on the ballot. So we'd like to be a part of seeing that changed.
If someone listening wants to make their next bold move, where should they start?
Oh, wow. I always say, do not wait around to be discovered. Discover yourself instead. So I always say start with self-inventory. Look back at all the ways you've ever been impactful. What are the things that have brought you the most joy? And I promise you purpose is hidden in there. I always say interview your friends and family. What happens when Staci is in the room? What does she make you want to do or believe when you have a conversation with her? Just in my brief time knowing you, when I'm around you, there's something about you that lets everybody else know that there's more, whether it's more to life or more to do. And I look at the energy you have. I think of myself as pretty high energy, but I am tired just watching you on social media. But you kind of remind me that I actually have more of myself to share. People built like me tend to sequester ourselves alone because we're thinking about what the next big thing is. And when I watch you, I'm reminded that we're actually built for the world outside of the four walls that we tend to hide behind. So if I were to off the cuff, wonder what your purpose was, it would probably have to do with helping people break free from confines that they have built for themselves and to live a much more colorful life in bold print. That's pretty good, right? See?
Oh, I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you share with our audiences? I mean, you've got this storied, exceptional career. I mean, you are demanding like $100,000 speaker fee.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're bringing it, and major global companies are inviting you on the stage.
Yeah. Just put my business in the street. Why don't you? Yeah, no. So this is the brag session, right? We just kind of talk about what it is
Please
we do and what we've done.
especially for aspiring speakers. I mean,
Yes.
what does it take to get to that upper echelon? And
Okay, well, if I'm just going to speak very blatantly, it takes balls. When I say that, what I mean is there are a lot of expectations on speakers to behave as the product. And most of us work with speaker bureaus, speaker agencies, and we're supposed to just wait there and be really grateful that maybe somebody will call and see if we're free on a certain date. And maybe they'll book us, and let's not charge too much because we don't want to price ourselves out of the market. And so I mentioned before that every great success for us has come at a reinvention point. Our biggest reinvention point is when I went out on my own. I left agencies and management and added the global to Jade Media. It used to be just Jade Media. And I said, I think we know how to market ourselves, pitch ourselves, and negotiate for ourselves better and more bravely than the other players are doing. And so I went from my first speaker fee, which was $12,000. It's because 12 is my favorite number. And I pulled it out of thin air. A corporation had called and I didn't know what to offer. And they said yes way too quickly. That was my first hint. There's money in this thing here. I spoke there, raised my fee to $15K. I spoke somewhere where they had me as a breakout instead of the main stage because I was unproven. And then I blew all the other main stage speakers out of the water. So they ended up taking me to Europe to do their European conference where suddenly my fee was $25K. And then I spoke for Nationwide at $25K and looked at their audience of 1,000 people who I'd realized they'd flown in to Disney World with their families, gave them all 3-day passes. And I was at $25K and I thought, the bagels here cost more than my speaker fee. I did the math. I flipped my fee again to $50K and I was told I was crazy. I was going to price myself out of the market. We got more bookings at $50K than at any of the other lower rates because let me tell you, your fee is a part of your brand. You can have something that looks expensive and if it's priced too cheaply, you doubt whether or not it's worth the quality. And so as you are out there setting your pricing and your fees, I'm not saying slap premium fees on it without understanding your worth, but understand your worth. I'd done my homework. I knew the best-selling guys they were bringing in were actually pretty boring on stage. Nobody else had a piano. Even the artists who brought in their instruments, they weren't really telling a story for the audience. They were only telling their story. So I learned how to tell my story in a way that felt like your story, and that made me worth a lot of money. And then a couple years ago, we flipped from the 50 to the 1% speaker fee stratosphere of 6 figures, 100K. And yes, demand slowed down because now we have to get into the upper echelon that is willing to pay that without you having to beg them to pay it. And so we're very proud that some of the big corporations are finding us. And guess what? They expect to pay a certain amount of money for the type of product and service that they're offering, except we don't market ourselves as a product and service. We market ourselves as an experience that you can't replicate. So I'm very proud. We'll have to send you my graphic with all the logos on the wall, but we now can list the Googles, the Chick-fil-A's, Nationwide, Raytheon, ExxonMobil, Pizza Hut. We run the gamut. And I think what makes me unique is that I literally can speak in any industry because of all of those reinventions, because of being the kid who did way too many things. I'm able to relate to just about any demographic and any audience and any brand. So thank you for giving me a moment to brag about that.
Yes, ma'am. Love that. Okay.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Good stuff.
You're making bold moves. What are you dreaming bigger about next?
You know what? Lately, I've found myself dreaming bigger about my kids. I have a 17-year-old son, an 11-year-old daughter, an incredible husband who's my high school sweetheart, believe it or not. And I think you get to a point where, especially if you are a female entrepreneur, we can spend 200% of our time building the business baby. And as I watch my kids get older, I think my biggest desire is that I'm not inspiring the masses more than I'm inspiring them. And so I just want to make sure that if I'm helping perfect strangers find purpose, that when my kids leave my home, they know what purpose is for themselves. And, I believe in what I call presidential parenting. Because some people slip up and become president, I think we need to take it upon ourselves to raise kids that could be president if they had to be. And so I just want to know that my kids are good people and that I've instilled in them something that's going to help them not just be awesome loners, right? But to be people who leave behind some kind of residue in a positive way wherever they go. I'm spending a lot of time dreaming about them lately.
Oh, well, I'm sure just hanging out with mom and seeing all the amazing work that
mom
you
is
do.
never as cool as she is on stage, right? But I hope so. I hope so.
Yes, of course you are. So proud of you. I know your kids are proud of you. And looking forward to seeing you again. Just appreciate you sharing a little bit of that Jade global experience.
Thank you, Staci. Thank you for what you do, for the space that you have just made for women. There's such a bad narrative that we don't know how to play together and that we're envious of each other. And if anybody personifies the exact opposite, that would be you. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you. I just wanted to amplify the voices and show the world all of these brilliant, amazing women who are doing incredible things in all of their respective industries. I mean, that's the reason why I started this, self-funded. And that's because, I don't have to ask anybody's permission. I'm doing it the way that I want it to be done.
Amen. Well, thank you.
Thank you so much.